I want to thank everybody for allowing me to come back. I had a chance about 3 months ago to present to your group, and I think we had a very productive time. We talked about some things that are changing the very nature of everything we do. And so I want to follow up on those comments today and discuss the impact of the transition from the industrial capitalistic economy we've all grown up with into what is becoming the digital capitalistic economy of the future, and how that affects the businesses we have and how we will exist in those businesses. These are major transformations. I was just on the radio this morning talking about the fact that you can't ignore this stuff. You can't put your head under the pillow and say, I'll just ignore AI and machine learning and all of these technologies. It's here now. It's going to affect you in the next short period of time. So hopefully today I'll give you a bit of a guide path on some thoughts on how you can begin to look at these things and put benefit back to your business. Let me suggest, I can't read that. I don't know if you can. My eyes aren't that good. If you'd like copies of these slides, please give me a business card and just say, send me copies of the slides. We'll be happy to do that. And I'm going to kind of just editorialize as I go down. I have no clue what any of that says. But I do want to welcome you to what we've labeled as the future of business. And I would suggest to everybody here, the future is today. The things that I'm going to talk about are not way down the line. I've been preaching this message for 10 years. And 10 years ago, it was at some point in the future we'll have this. It's here. And the impact on your businesses is here today. What we have is the intersection now of major technologies that are available, and that includes the new Web3 technology, up to and including 3D web, which you might think of as the metaverse, blockchain, AI, social media connectivity, and self-learning AI or robotics. When you put all this together, and it is all there today, it changes everything. And it's that intersection that is new. As recently as 2 years ago, the work that's being done in AI and Web3 could not be done. But today, it can be done, and it is being done. So what we're going to describe are some of the impacts on each level of your business, whether it's sales, marketing, manufacturing, administration, finance, and how this is going to affect you now, tomorrow, and into the future. As I said, to me, this is a restructuring, and we don't have all day, I wish we did. It's a restructuring of the very nature of economics that we've all grown to understand. As I was introduced, I've spent 35 years of my life in economics. Everything going on now transitions that, and it transitions it from a fundamental basis. The whole notion of value is being rethought. What does value mean? And let me give you a simplistic example of that. It wasn't very long ago, maybe 6 months, that a woman paid $350,000, real dollars, for a computer-generated diamond tiara in the metaverse. Now, you and I look at that and say, that's nuts. But to that person, the value was real because it was unique. The whole concept of value that you and I have held in our business lives is changing. And that's what all of this comes down to, really the core. So who's handling the slides? Is that? I don't. Is that, this is, so I'm doing it? I get to figure out how to make this work. Does that work? Okay. So as we begin to look at the transition into the digital economy, it's important to look at some broad things first. The globe is shrinking. When I grew up in Indiana, I lived in a community where my entire ecosphere was that community. You had a telephone to reach out, but we didn't have cable TV. We had local television. So everything was local. It was my neighborhood. It was my city. Now, kids growing up are as likely to have friends in Mumbai, India, as they are in their own backyard. You're as likely to get payments from Eastern Europe as you are from the United States. We've shrunk the globe to the point where it is a very small ecosystem that all of us either are or should be participating in. And as we look at our businesses, It's nice to be able to open up our horizons a bit. Most of you already have. This isn't rocket science. But most of you have been able to look and say, you know what, I can extend out my reach. I had a discussion with Lake Ray last night, and Lake and I were talking about a church he goes to. That church is using satellite technology to broadcast their message out to hundreds of thousands of people well outside of their community that 5 years ago would have been unthinkable. The breadth of our businesses is changing. And so this idea that the globe is shrinking and that we are a global company is inherent to everything we do. And I think we need to start thinking about that. As that happens, the physical and the digital worlds are combining. I'm not here to talk about Elevator, but I will bring some of it in because we're literally at the forefront of integrating Web3 and AI and all these other things. When you look at what we're doing in the world of what you guys call the metaverse, we're creating digital twins so that your office environment is replicated in the digital world. Now, the advantage of that, when we look at remote work and we look at the Zoom effect that we saw through COVID, what you lost using Zoom is the idea of management by walking around. All of you who deal in management know the feeling of walking down the hallway, you see somebody's office, and you stop in and just say, hey, how are you? You test their temperature. Well, you can't do that with Zoom. The meta world and the ecosystems it creates allow you to do that. So what we're building, and we're not the only one, there are others who are trying to do this, but what we're building is an actual digital twin of your office space so that you as a manager walk down the hallway and can stop in and see your employees. Now, is that a replacement for the physical world? No, it's a supplement to the physical world. But these technologies play together, and they're coming together more and more rapidly. And the better AI gets, the better machine learning gets, the better all this stuff gets, the more integrated it will become. We're going to be in a world where you'll see e-commerce become v-commerce. And what I mean by that is we've all dealt in the world of eBay and Amazon and e-commerce. We're moving to a world of virtual commerce. And what I mean by that is you're going to see a world in which the virtual sales of product, whether it's copiers or pick your product, especially in the retail world, come down to a virtual store. We're working with a company right now to build a showroom for them to showcase their digital copiers. So when people go into their ecosystem, they will actually go into a showroom and see those copiers just as if they were in a live showroom. And they will be talked to by an AI bot that has been created specifically to know how to sell copiers. So this stuff is there, it's being built, and so you'll see e-commerce become v-commerce. Automation, robotics, AI is not new. All of you in manufacturing have been working with smart carts for 30 years, but it is exponentially growing. We had a speaker at the last event that I attended back in June, and his company actually puts smart widgets on existing traditional equipment to monitor its performance and maintenance needs. So we're creating smart technology out of heretofore was dumb technology. All of that stuff is being done and is now or should be being looked at by your IT departments. How do we take our dumb technology and make it smart? This was when IBM came out with their Big Blue project and they created Watson. One of the first things Watson was created to do was manage the service needs of large buildings. So it would monitor the elevator systems. And it would predict within those elevator systems which components would need service and when. All of that technology can be done on your own manufacturing sites. So you can use the AI technology to actually help you better gain an understanding of your maintenance costs and therefore not just reduce costs, but safety. So that's available today. And again, I forget the guy's name. I'm sure Lake would remember it, but if you want to jot on your card, get me that guy's name, I'll get that too. I thought that was really interesting. So when you look at this intersection of these technologies, it's not just an impact on sales, but it's production, it's finance, it's administration, certainly the idea of consulting, service provision. All of these things are changing today. And the change that you're going to experience is exponential. I've given speeches all over the place, and I've talked frequently about how if you go back to a person born in 1700 and they lived their life to 1760, the change they saw was flat. Life at the beginning of their existence and the way life was done was very similar to the end of their existence. The same was true from 1760 to 1820. Now in 1820, we have the beginning of the Industrial Revolution. The next 100 years showed change. You look at that then for someone born in 1900, their change accelerated with communications, transportation, technologies. It accelerated at a much higher rate. In the 21st century, we've seen it go vertical. And you've all seen this. I have 6 kids. My first was born in 1995. My last was born in 2003. If I look at their life experience, they're different. It changes that fast. And we're seeing that same type of change happen now in business, where it's exponential and it's vertical. Regulatory environments can't keep up with this. Again, when you look at finance, especially in the regulations from government, they're always managing in the rearview mirror. They can't look ahead to regulate what's happening, whether it's in digital currencies, digital accounting, or digital tokenization. They don't even begin to comprehend how to regulate that. But it's happening, and it's happening very quickly. So what we're here to do today, and what I want to do, is just have a discussion with you and maybe have some thoughts that you say, I hadn't thought about that before. Because we all deal in business. We spend our lives worried about our business, focusing on the bottom line, focusing all the issues from human resources down. And it's hard sometimes to get that mental set where you can sit back and say, what's really going on and where does it go? And so the purpose that I have today is to make that happen for you. But let's talk about a rethinking of business. And I'm going to talk today on 5 specific things: manufacturing, retail, finance, consulting, and selling. All of those are being enormously impacted as we speak. In fact, on the radio today, we were talking about, somebody had said to me, in fact, Lake and I were talking last night, how does this affect the basics of food? I mean, how do you produce food? Well, it's simple, robotics. And if you go out on the big farms, all of the tractors are robotically driven. They don't have people driving those tractors anymore. So we have robotics producing the food, auto drive trucks delivering the food, conveyor belts and smart carts stocking the shelves. That's real, and that's here now. So we have to begin accepting that we better think about what this means and where this goes. So when we look, let's go first to manufacturing, because I think this is one of the tough ones. And people say, well, how does this really play out in the manufacturing world? Again, I grew up in the 70s in a world when smart carts were just introduced. We started to see the efficiencies of robotics come into production. We are seeing now faster than ever robotics, AI, machine learning, and these technologies, the semiconductor-based technologies, come in and transform manufacturing. This isn't rocket science. You all know this. But it's happening faster and faster and faster. And what that means is businesses will have fewer and fewer lower value employees and more high value employees. One of the companies that's part of my family of companies does HR work. So they have a product called Job Formants where they try to help companies hire better people. They're seeing this play out in real time. With their bigger customers, the nature of job titles are changing. And it's because we're automating more and more of the production cycle with robotics and AI. When we look at the supply chain and the disruptions we had during COVID in the supply chain, which we're still not totally out of, but when we look at that, what's being imposed on that now through AI is a completely regenerated supply chain, to the point where we will be able to forward predict needs and localize production much more than we ever have in the past. As technology grows, you will see manufacturing come back to its demand location. What I mean by that, in the 70s and 80s, we saw manufacturing swarm overseas. And it did it not because of taxes. Most people in the general public think it was tax rates. It wasn't, it was regulation. So companies decided it was cheaper net to operate overseas, with all the inefficiencies of that because they didn't have the regulatory environment we do. What I would suggest is happening is with robotics, we can afford to bring that manufacturing back to the demand location so that you'll have local production. But it changes supply chain, but it changes employment. So it's all tied into that same equation. We have this idea of cost and energy, and that becomes real. All of us in business get our utility bills. And most of us, especially if you're in grocery or if you're in high tech, you get your electric bill and you cringe. We're looking now at a supply grid that is incapable of supporting the needs of the demand that are coming down the line. I think most people in here see this. Again, I'm not saying something that's revolutionary. We don't have the power supply for electric cars, electric trucks, and all the other electric things. Where I live in Chicago, I'm west of the city, all of our power is from the Zion nuclear plant. All of it. Now, there has been talk that they want to shut down the Zion plant because there are some typical safety concerns from whichever political persuasion you want to hear it. But if they do that, where's the electric going to come from? This is a real problem all around the country. And as I talk to the independent business community around the country, I find that the need for energy and the cost of electricity is a real concern for them. So how does technology affect that for you? Creates new ideas. Some of us in our businesses can think more about solar. And again, you've already thought about these things. But I will tell you one funny technology, just because I like to bring up funny stuff. You guys all know Elon Musk, right? I'm connected by like a friend to him, so I hear stuff from time to time. One of the most interesting things I've heard would revolutionize electricity and energy supply. You've all heard of cold fusion by now. Cold fusion is the technology that creates the fusion reaction of the sun. We've actually sustained cold fusion now at minus 350 degrees for a nanosecond. But that means it's possible. Elon had a better idea. Why not use the power of the sun to power all of our electricity? We get more power out of the sun, and I forget the number exactly, but it's like in 1 hour than the whole world uses in a year. It's some staggering number like that. His thought is we put up in a satellite a great big solar panel, and we beam the electricity down to receptors on Earth. It sounds far-fetched, but it's actually possible. So it is conceivable that we will have optimistic news coming down in the electric supply side in the next 10 years. But anyway, in the interim, we're all going to be stuck with higher and higher electric bills. My wife was teasing me recently because I went solar on our house, and she said, "Why'd you do it?" And I said, "Because I think electric rates are going to triple." And I do, and that will affect your businesses. So you're going to have to find cost savings somewhere else or price increases to deal with that demand. Now, as we look again, this idea of customer acquisition, I'm going to talk to you in a minute about how technology is coming together in the digital world to increase customer acquisition and to support it. For the manufacturers, you have no business if you don't have customers. And I believe that you can use digital technology today to help create higher demand and give better support and better customer acquisition products or processes to your team. So we'll get into a little more detail on that as I go down. But in the manufacturing world, it's uncontrovertible that this is affecting you. It will continue to. And in order to make your dumb equipment smart and to move your company into the digital economy, you have to learn to embrace the AI type processes. Go to the next one, which is a fun one, and that's retail. And I get in some trouble when I make the following statement. Retail is dead. If you're in bricks and mortar retail, lights out, say goodnight. There's no way to create a sustainable business model against the digital age. Doesn't happen. So the bricks and mortar retailers will continue as they have been, dying one at a time. Because which of us doesn't prefer to sit in the comfort of our home and go to Amazon? It's just easier. I was going out the other day, I had to buy it. I'm wired here for a mic for that camera, and I had to buy it. And I thought, now, do I want to drive around and go from store to store, or do I just want to go on Amazon and have it delivered that day? Pretty simple choice. So retailers are facing this, and in order to deal with it, again, it's this notion that the retail world, if you're in retail, you had better begin to start embracing v-commerce. Begin to envision how you take your business into the virtual world, because that is the next stage of evolution for you, and it's necessary. Now, this will create an uplift in boutiques. In the micro world of business, you have the individuals with the boutique businesses. The really cool little knickknacks that we go buy, the candles, the figurines, all the cool stuff, that's going to continue to thrive. But they also are going to go virtual, because if you go back 15 years and you were a small manufacturer of consumer products, one of the smartest and dumbest things you could do simultaneously was go to Walmart and distribute your product. Walmart gave you immediate access to national distribution, immediate. But they also consumed all your production, so they would jack down your price. Well, what we're seeing is that the v-commerce world will give immediate global distribution to all of these products. I'm doing a thing right now. We're in the middle of a capital raise for Elevera, which seems like it's what I do for a living, is raise money. But I'm working with groups in India to help us do that. I didn't even know they were from India. They have US-based phone numbers, but they have phone numbers for whichever part of the world you live in. Their websites are in whatever language you speak. You'd never know. They're a niche company, but they've been able to take it globally because of the use of v-commerce. And using AI, they're able to come across and seem like a domestic company to whichever culture they're in. That's coming to a store near you. Now, one of the other things that I want to talk to is this idea, and it's up here, I think, listed as theft and fencing. I have a very good friend of mine who has a consumer product, and he will tell you the following. This isn't my opinion, so for the attorneys in the room, I'm only saying this as hearsay from somebody else. They would tell you that Amazon is nothing more than a great big fencing operation. I mean, think about it. People walk into, pick your city, pick your store, Nordstrom's, anybody? CVS. They take the product, they put it up on Amazon and sell it. It's such a big problem that I think it was just this last quarter, Dick's Sporting Goods came out in their quarterly report and announced to their shareholders that the biggest impact to they had higher sales for the period, lower profits. And the reason for that was theft. It's becoming a bigger and bigger problem, and I would suggest this is another reason that retail will move away from the bricks and mortar model into the virtual model. It eliminates theft. Now, the last comment up here is this idea of metaverse-based retail. I assume everyone in here is familiar with the metaverse, kinda. The biggest disservice done to the metaverse was Meta, formerly Facebook. When they created their metaverse, they created Fantasyland, right? You go in, you're a dragon, pick whatever weirdness you want to be, float around, and hopefully you're going to come into a commingled room where you can meet other weird people who dressed up as whatever they want to be. That is not the way to do it. If anybody in here reads Florida Daily, which is Ed Dean's publication, he'll be here later, I published an article to Ed called Form versus Function. And it was all a big slam on Meta. You guys live in the real world with me. I have legs, I walk around, I'm a humanoid type person. What we want is a metaverse that feels like this. We don't want Fantasyland. And what Meta did is create an image of the metaverse that has everybody thinking it's a cartoon. It's not. The web digital technology that's available through Web3 creates the ability to create this in a digital world. It looks like this, it feels like this. Is it perfect yet? No. But the avatar technology, the graphics technology, the architecture technology is giving us more and more the ability to feel like the real world. I go back to my earlier comment that the physical and digital are coming together. For the retailer, it is inevitable that just as you begrudgingly in some cases went and got a website, you're going to embrace this 3D web. You're going to utilize the technology to create the environment into which your customers can come. Again, I'll digress a little bit and tell you personal stuff on what we're doing because it's relevant. Jobformance, which is our HR company that I have an interest in, their product, the Job Fit Report, evaluates the efficacy of a person to a specific job. It's a pretty cool little tool. They're a small company. They don't have a lot of global distribution. We are building a web 3D portal for them on their website. You just click and you go right into the Jobformance ecosystem. You're going to be met in the Jobformance lobby, and it's a lobby just like they have here. There's a person behind a desk, a concierge, and when you go to the concierge and you say hello, that concierge is going to come back, hi, I think their code name is Iris. Hi, I'm Iris. I'm the concierge for Jobformance. How can I help you today? Well, I don't know, I just came in, I thought it looked kind of cool. Well, I get that. Is there anything specific? Would you like to learn more about our HR capabilities? Would you like to apply for a job? Would you like to learn about the Job Fit Report? Oh, I've heard about Job Fit. I'd like to learn more. Well, good. Let me have you go meet this person in this office. That person happens to be another AI bot. The AI bot's going to sell them a Job Fit Report. Completely automated. They just went global overnight. As a retailer, especially of services like that, you are going to be using this Web3 technology to do that kind of thing. When you have somebody who comes in and looks at your goods and services, no matter what it is, would you rather have them go to a passive website in which they come in, they browse, and they leave, or would you rather bring them into your own ecosystem in which they're met by a humanoid talking to them about what they're there for? This stuff is affecting all of what we do. In retail, it will move there quickly. I'll talk about another related thing in a minute, but I want to go to finance. Again, this is close to my heart. I love finance. I've been in it all my life. As I said, I built one of the first, it wasn't called fintech in those days, but it would be effectively fintech. We quantified with computers alpha models for the institutional investing world. So when you look at the effect in finance, the AI, all of you know about robo-investing? You've all heard that phrase? What happens simply is that coming through 2000s as we've grown, the cost of managing money has exponentially grown. The idea of a small advisor, you know, it used to be in the old days, they'd say, if you have $250,000, we'd like to talk to you. Then it grew to $500,000. It's pretty soon going to be $1 million. And that's because the cost, regulatory cost of running that shop is so high. Well, the response by the big institutions to that cost has been to automate investing. And they have robo-advisors. These are machine learning systems that will allocate your capital based on the assets of the age you are and your risk tolerance. They will put you into funds within those groups that are pre-approved by the broker, but selected by the AI. That's commonplace. With that, I want to bring up something that I've heard before. Has anybody gotten an ad on your email spam that says you can earn 5,000% a day using AI in the markets? Anybody seen that? I get them all the time because I'm on every email list you can imagine. Don't believe it. It's not true. AI is not that great yet. When we were building CIA, that company in the 90s, we were involved in neural nets and genetic algorithms and all the rest. And one of the things you find is that an AI is only as good as the training you give it. It's a little like an MBA student. They're really good at regurgitating out what you've taught them. AI can't really think yet on its own at that level. But these AI things are not good at predicting an unknown future. And the best way I can equate that is something called chaos theory. Anybody in here ever smoke? All right, I'm guilty. I like cigars. You know. When you do that and you watch the smoke rise from the tip of the cigarette or cigar, it goes straight up and then it breaks down. But nobody can predict the point at which it breaks down. It just does. It's chaos. Financial markets are like that. We can predict to a point what they'll do, but beyond that is chaos. And so when these algorithms tell you, go out and do this, they're predicting that predictable point. They're not telling you what the chaos will bring. And if we have a lot of time, we can talk about chaos because I think there's a lot of it on the way. We're going to be talking more and more about currencies and the digitization of currencies. Everybody knows about Bitcoin. I don't know if you knew this. Do you guys realize that Bitcoin was not created as a currency? It really wasn't. It's an outcome. What happened is they developed this concept of blockchain. And the blockchain basically gives you the ability to fully distribute data on a perfectly secure, interlinked basis. But when it was developed, nobody knew if it would work. So they needed to get a lot of people to adopt nodes in that blockchain to forward the ability of the blockchain to grow. And the way they did that is they incentivized them with something called a Bitcoin. And that's how it was developed. It wasn't for itself. It just became an outgrowth of blockchain. And so when you look at currency and digital stuff, crypto is much bigger a concept than just Bitcoin. And let me give you an example. And again, I want to talk a little bit, but cautiously, about what we're doing at Elevair because it's really cool. Let's assume that you adopt an Eleverse for your own business. So you're part of our intranet. In the Eleverse, everybody's linked together like a big LinkedIn on steroids. Well, one of the things we allow for, and we're in the process of building it, it's not available today, but we're months away, is let's say you do accounting. Well, you can actually go in and transact business using Elevair tokens completely autonomously within the Eleverse itself. So you could pay a lawyer in tokens, that lawyer could pay a tailor in tokens, that tailor could pay a cotton manufacturer in tokens. It's all done on an intranet, private, untraceable, and secure. Somebody said to me, you're creating your own economy. I would never be so bold, but it's true. This idea of tokenization of the economy is creating that next level in economic structures. And I would make the argument that what we're heading for is, in effect, a big, highly advanced technical barter system where every person deals directly with every other person and effectively barters using a token for their services. It's there, it's doable, it's frictionless. And if you look at the idea of blockchain and the idea of all of this stuff, it's simply removing friction from the system. So that idea of tokenization and creating digital transaction capabilities, it's real, it's there, and all it needed was a business model put to it, and that's what we did. Now, we won't be the only ones. There are going to be a lot of people who do this eventually, but we're, I think, a little ahead of the curve. It's something to become comfortable with. I know people say to me all the time, well, somebody can come in and steal your crypto. Well, somebody go rob the bank, too. I mean, there's not a whole lot of difference. The difference is crypto, if it's done properly in the blockchain, you can't steal it. You can't break the code. You can't intercept it. It's physically and virtually impossible. So you're going to see finance move more and more in that direction. Now, I mentioned earlier that as regulations always look in the rearview mirror, the regulatory response to this is going to be that the big get bigger. Instead of 4,000 commercial banks, we're going to have 2,000 commercial banks. You're going to have JP Morgan Chase that currently has 2-point-something trillion in assets. They're going to have 3 or 4 trillion in assets. They will be the local bank, but they're a public service. They won't be able to compete with this economy. So what will they do? They'll try to regulate it. How do you regulate something that doesn't exist? Now that's not polite. Let's turn off those phones. Thank you. Mine's going to go off in a minute. But I think that we all have to get our arms kind of wrapped around this idea of digital currencies and think about how in our business can we use a digital currency to eliminate friction. And that's all they're for. How do you make a transaction happen with less slippage? We were talking, Lake and I, about the cost of regulations on real estate. It's significant. How do you reduce the friction in the transaction? In stocks, it used to be a 7% commission. It went to 3%, then it was 1%, now it's micro pennies. They've reduced friction. Digital currencies can further reduce friction. So as you get into the Web3 world and you get into the meta world and you offer your services and your products in the meta world, there may be a way to incorporate a digital currency of your own or a digital tokenization. I mean, frequent flyer miles, that's all that is. So there may be a way for you to do that in your own business. We clearly are going to head to a global currency. Again, I wrote a paper in 1981 in my years at Purdue University. I wrote a paper in an economics class about how the coming world would be run by the multinational corporations, nation states would fade and go away. I think they will. I think that's going to start with the demise of the dollar as the global currency, the reserve currency. And I think we're headed for it. The IMF has already proposed using drawing rights, special drawing rights as the replacement. You guys, again, this isn't rocket science now, you've seen it. The BRIC company or countries are moving actively away from the dollar. I would argue that the imposition and implementation of digital currencies will further drive that so that we will be in a world with not a single world currency. In my current thinking, I think we're going to have unlimited numbers of unlimited tokens. We'll all do business with each other. I think it's a more efficient way to do it. Again, tied with this is this idea of risk and cybersecurity. On our board of directors is a guy that's a former FBI head of cybersecurity. We take it very seriously, and I think you should too. If you haven't been hit with a really bad virus, you will. Time will tell. Make sure that not just your viruses and firewalls are up to speed, but all of your protocols through your whole network and all of your remote worker networks are taken care of. Again, one of the reasons that we're doing what we do is we're creating a remote work capability that is safe and secure and productive for the employer. Because this idea of somebody coming in through one of your employees into your network is frightening. And it happens all the time. So we would suggest everybody doubles down their efforts to have cybersecurity. I want to talk real quick about consulting, and this is kind of near to me too. I spent years working for Wharton Econometrics as a consultant, and we always were great at spitting back what you all told us and charging you for it. It's a great gig. Consulting is changing. The whole idea of consulting is changing. First of all, AI is capable of much of the consulting that we'd get. When you're running your business, you want to ask for, I'm going to say legal advice, but in a loose term, you want legal thought. You want accounting thought. You want supply chain thought, HR thought. You want these things at your fingertips. Again, we in the Eleverse have an AI-based assistant who's been trained on business. So that when people come into our world and they meet our assistant and they say, I want the latest statistics on GDP growth for this county, it'll spit it back to you in 2 seconds. When you say, I want a marketing plan optimized for this demographic in this community over this time frame, boom, done. That's changing the idea of consulting. You guys now have your own consultant in-house who's far more knowledgeable than 90% of the consultants out there. So what this will do is raise the bar for these consultants, and it will create specialization. We've seen in medicine over the last 50 years, specialization just completely take hold. You know, you go into the hospital, it's like, what's your specialty? I put in a stitch. What's yours? I take one out. I mean, it's really becoming ridiculous. But it's necessary as medicine's gotten so complicated. As this technology takes off, things will become so complicated at that level that the consultants you hire will be very specialized. And it's going to be things like, how do I improve the cybersecurity of this node in this network? So you'll see transitions coming out of there, and the integration of new tech, specifically AI. Because for the world of McKinsey and the world of Booz Allen and all these other consulting firms that have been around forever, the fact of the matter is AI can do much of what their low-level consultants did. And we now offer that to the business community as part of a business platform. I mean, it's common. So you'll have your own consultants that are there that can answer questions. We're not far from having that administrative consultant say, oh, and by the way, don't forget there's a Knicks game tonight and the tickets are available for this. Do you want me to buy them? We're months away from educating our AI to do that. So when you look at a business and you say, what resources do I need? Don't ignore this idea of an in-house consultant based on AI. They're not perfect, but they're a heck of a lot better than nothing. And they're not expensive at all. So we'll then go to our favorite, which, all right, is there anybody in this room that owns a business? Okay, come on. Here's why I ask. Do you ever get really frustrated with the team and go, does nobody understand sales? It's got to, I mean, there is nothing absent sales. You don't have a business. So, one of the challenges that I faced when I looked at our development team, this goes back a couple of years, I was on an airplane, I was going out to Texas, and I'm sitting next to a guy who runs a company out in California, and I was telling him what I was doing. He said, you know, if you could enhance or replace my salesman, you'd make $1 billion. I said, well, the good news is I can do a lot more than that, so I think I'll make $1 trillion. We have now taken technology to the point where it can expand and enhance your direct customer-focused selling. And again, let me give you a couple specifics here. All of us have been on LinkedIn. It's a great prospecting tool. It's kind of boring. People are kind of used to it. You get enough in-mails, you just go delete, 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 delete. What the Web3 space provides is a digital networking platform that feels like this. Again, in the Eleverse, we have a 2,000-person auditorium. So imagine having all of your LinkedIn connections go into an auditorium where you can pitch your product or your service or your idea. It's all digital, but it's so enhanced over the current networking technologies that it creates a whole new level of digital networking. And this is here now. So if you are, or you have salespeople who are out trying to do networking, the transformation into the digital age will completely remodel how they think of networking. It's completely different because you're walking around a group like this. Granted, it's an avatar, but I will tell you the world is adopting to avatars. You look at normal business people, they have avatars as their LinkedIn page picture. The fact is, we're going to have these worlds. You can come in, you can meet new people of similar interest around the globe and go visit them in their office. I'd rather meet somebody in their office than it would on a chat room. And that's what this stuff brings. Digital showrooms. I mentioned this friend of mine that we're building for who runs a copier company. We're building a digital copier showroom for him. When a person comes in, the AI bot is going to ask them what what constraints are. How many copies a month? Do you need color? Do you need digital? Da, 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 da. That AI bot is trained. It will then show them the machine that exactly specifically fits their needs. Up to the DocuSign agreements to get the deal done. It's completely AI-based robotic sales. Again, I think it's here now. This isn't looking forward. You should consider this. This is like right now, you ought to be implementing this in your own business. It's hard to adapt to new things, But when you look at the ability of technology to sell your product or service 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, better than most of your salespeople, because the AI salespeople are trained that the average sale takes place on the third ask. So they're willing to say, does this interest you? Would you like to get going with this? When the buyer says, well, I don't know yet, I have more to think about. Well, good. Let's talk about what more you have to think about. By the way, I see that you're on this. It'll deflect the conversation like a salesman should, and then bring it back. Well, here's the answer to that question. Now, with that, is this something that we could get you started on? Well, I don't know. I'm still a little nervous. I understand that. We have data from around the world that shows that 99% of buyers are afraid of this and that. Are any of those your fears? Yeah, a little bit. Well, listen, here's how we address that. Can we get you started now? And on the third answer, they typically say yes. So we believe that if you're not now, you should be integrating the Web3 technology with the AI trained bots to sell your products. We're certainly doing it. Again, Elevera is an emerging tech company, right? So we're in the process of a capital raise, always. In our Eleverse, we have a trained concierge. When you walk in, and we release this in like 2 weeks, that concierge is going to say, are you here to learn about the Elevera investment? And if somebody says yes, another bot comes up who knows more about Elevera's metrics than I ever will, who can sit and say, this is a $4.2 trillion market according to these organizations. This is a breakdown of those markets. Here's why Elevera hits it, da-da-da-da-da-da, on down. Here's the cost. It's sophisticated, but it's better than me doing it. I can't go out and talk to enough people. My metaverse can talk to people around the globe 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on an unlimited scale. Because if I get one person who comes in, I got a bot. If I get two, I got two bots. If I have 100, I have 100 bots. If I get 1,000, I invite them into our auditorium. It's completely transforming all of the way that you've ever sold anything. So I urge you to begin thinking about that. The idea of training and education for sales, one of the things I learned long ago is you sell by not selling. You sell people things by consulting with them and solving their problems. Well, the problem we have is a lot of salespeople don't know that. They think sales is all about being glib and going out and telling a spiel and a pitch. Using the metaverse-based stuff, training and education costs come down to zero. Again, coming down here, and I want to thank Lake for inviting me on such an incredible week. Did any of you get impacted by that hurricane? I left Atlanta yesterday morning. And again, this just gives you an insight into how weird I am. I'm looking at the weather radars, and I'm thinking, okay, if I leave at this time, and I drive and then head east a little bit, I could intercept the eye of the hurricane right here. So I did. I'd never been through a hurricane. So now I can say I've been through a hurricane. The point is, it costs time and energy to come down and get us all together, right? Using the meta technologies, the cost of that is virtually zero. It's still time, but there's no travel, there's no transportation cost, food, all that. It creates an environment which your company can educate customers, prospects, salespeople, and employees for no cost. So you'll do more of that. And I would argue that as McKinsey came out, and I'm a fan of McKinsey because I think they do good research. They came out recently and said that for the first time, they're going to make the formal statement that going to college is probably not worth the money. Again, you get debate on either side of that equation. My point is, if you look at that and say, okay, so if fewer people go to college, IBM no longer requires a college degree. That's revolutionary for I've been moved. But if that's true, who fills the gap? Who fills the knowledge gap? I would argue it's you. Your businesses are the ones who will be teaching your employees what they need to know about business. You're going to give them the MBAs. And because of that, you'll need the digital technology to cut the cost because you can't afford to do it without that. But using this kind of technology, training your employees to have an MBA in your business, and give them a certificate. You've completed the training course for ABC Company. That will have as much or more stick in the market as the degrees do. And you can do it for virtually no cost. And that will take through, you can imagine if you just extend that to education in general. The educational model in the US is broken. We could talk about it all day. It just doesn't work. It was built for an 1890s model. It's just outdated. This will revolutionize technology. And it will certainly start at the college level, where imagine a world in which you say, I want to go to the College of ABC, and I'm going to go pick the best professors in these 10 curriculum from around the world. And that's my curriculum. We're headed toward that. And the meta technology makes it possible to do it. So education and training all transition and transform because of the digitized economy. I have notes here because I knew I wouldn't be able to read that. So the question is, what does this digital age mean to you? Everything. It is here, it is now. The implementation of Web3 digital technology, especially the 3D web, otherwise called the metaverse, you can implement it today. You can bring automated sales. Somebody said to me, you're missing the whole boat. And I said, what's the boat? And they said, customer support. Nobody likes to hang on the 800 call indefinitely, right? Using the AI world in the metaverse, people come in for support. They're dealt with by a person immediately. So for customer support, for telemarketing, for all of these customer acquisition and support functions, the digital world will provide a completely new experience. So the transformation is real, it's here, and it's going to affect you as independent and public business people in ways that we've not even seen. But be prepared for it, because again, if you think we're transitioning this fast, don't be left behind on this one. Embrace it, don't be afraid of it, and let AI work for you. Let robotics work for you, machine learning and Web3 all come together and work for you. So I appreciate your time and your attention. I'd be happy to answer questions. I think we have a little bit of time.